Hello all those who are interested in adoption and fostering. My name is Nairi, this is Fly Little Bears, and today we're going to talk about mental health and adopting, fostering as well, and mental health, and why this is such a hot potato, such an important topic in fact. And what I want to say as well is that I have two adopted boys and I've been a foster carer, and so I've been through many trials and traumas and situations which have raised issues for my mental health, potentially meant that I've had to really rethink things and make changes. So here we go. So the first thing to say is that you've got the child's mental health and you've got your mental health, and what you can find as well is that sometimes you don't know who to deal with first and what situations to deal with first. Now, because the child is your priority and you're making sure that you're doing everything right for them, you don't want to be appearing to be not caring, not doing the right thing, making the right decisions, your mental health can go on the back burner. With adoption, but even with fostering, it raises issues and dilemmas that you never knew you had before, you never even considered before. It raises the questions that you have in your mind about the child's past and how you're going to reconcile those things in your mind. There's always a history, there's always a past there. So even if you don't tap into that, or you don't need to be in touch with the birth family or know anything about them, there is still that history there. Sometimes things can play on your mind. So also, of course, if you know there's been abuse and neglect and you know the story, then that's very hard to deal with, and that can play havoc with your own mental health, particularly if you've had your own experiences of abusive childhood. And so all the mental health around adoption and fostering, it can raise all the things that you struggled with as a child or even an adult, and sometimes it's really hard to admit that to anybody else. So sometimes you might bury things or keep things quiet, and you may not even share those things with your partner or whoever you're with. As the child gets older, they're not necessarily going to be cute anymore. You'll love them and they will be cute, but they won't be cute in the way they were when they were younger. And it may be that the child's come with loads of challenges and you know what you're in for, and that might be difficult enough, but it might be as a child gets older that you realise that those behaviours and challenges are here to stay, and that they are more demanding than what you thought. And that can lead to a feeling of feeling down and a bit panicky, because you realise that if you're in a long-term fostering situation or you're adopting, that you're going to have to deal with it. And who are you going to talk to about it? Are you going to mention it to a social worker? Are you going to let on that you're not coping? Are you going to go to a therapist, let on you're not coping? Are you going to tell family and friends? Are you going to worry about the repercussions that happen, when you tell family and friends? So our situation with our boys is that they're now into their teens, and we have lots and lots of issues with them. I'm not going to lie, developmental issues, sometimes behavioural issues, and I feel like I'm really lucky because I do have some people that I can share it with, but would I share it with everybody? No. Would I want to share it with a social worker now? No. I mean, we don't have one now because the boys are adopted. So there are social workers in the background, and we have gone to them recently and said, no, we're going to need more therapy from one of the boys, and they're quite happy to provide that. But I think in the early days when you're adopting, or even in the first few years, to be honest, you don't want to admit to yourself that you might be struggling. But the trouble with that is that if you don't admit to yourself you're struggling, and you start to get a lot of sleepless nights, maybe you get dreams, nightmares about things that the child's going through or putting you through, you get exhausted. I think exhaustion plays a massive part in all of our downfall. That's why I said apologise for my eyes, because I've had a few nights of not sleeping very well, and I'll explain why in a minute. But yeah, you get exhausted, you can't rationalise, you can't think properly. And this is when I think it's really, really easy to become depressed and anxious, because you're really tired and you just can't cope with daily life. And then all you need is for other things to come on top of you. Like perhaps you still have to meet with a birth parent that you're struggling with. Perhaps you have to write contact letters for letterbox contacts. Perhaps you have to go through a history again with a professional. I know for us that happened recently when I was at school. I had to go through the boys' history again, and it was quite a few years later after I hadn't shared their history for a long time, And it hit me like a ton of bricks when I remembered what they'd gone through, because as a family things have become a lot more normalised, and I found I didn't need to share their history as much as I did in the early days with professionals. And so being reminded of their history and things can traumatise you and bring things back. All of this can be exhausting. The secondary trauma that you experience when you go over the history of a child that's really difficult to read, whether that's in the beginning or whether that's later in their lives. The behaviours that change from being difficult to really difficult. The family situation, which might be one thing at the beginning, where say you have contact and then you don't, or the other way around, you don't and then you do, or that your child wants to start talking about birth family, they want to go and see birth family. Same with fostering, children start asking questions about their family and you just find it really hard based on their circumstances. All of this piles the pressure on. And I think adopters and foster carers, above everybody, because I'm a parent of birth children as well, want to prove to the world that they're doing a good job. Feel like sometimes they have to justify to the world that they're doing a good job. Not that they're doing a good job, that they're doing a better job than anybody else. Now, why we're like that, I don't know. Perhaps because the children have been entrusted to us either for a short time in fostering or for a lifetime. Perhaps because we've had to go through various assessments and prove to everybody that we're worthy of having these children. Who knows? But what I do know is we put pressure on ourselves to be the perfect parents, the perfect foster parent, the perfect adoptive parent, and that in itself brings pressure. And when things don't go according to plan, we don't feel that we're doing a good enough job, or things start falling apart around us, that we feel isolated, and that again is another trigger for depression and anxiety. And I just believe that mental health in adopters and in foster carers is probably really poor. I reckon it's worse than anybody ever knows, because people just don't talk about it, because they don't want to confess, they don't want to say if they're feeling ill or they're not feeling well or they're suffering from exhaustion or secondary trauma. Nobody wants to talk about it because they're frightened of the children being taken away, or that they're not good enough, basically. That's the bottom line. So how have I overcome these things? Well, I'm quite an open person anyway, hence I've got a YouTube channel, and I think that when I'm really struggling with the boys, I am quite open. Doing the videos is one way that I can do that. And I just strongly suggest that you find that person, people, places that you can go where you can talk about things. You're not often going to be able to share the real nitty gritty of some deeper stuff perhaps that you have in the family, but you are going to be able to maybe offload a little bit, and make sure that the person you're offloading to is really happy to hear. Because if they start not giving you eye contact or going, yeah, I've heard it all before, or giving you that look, you're not going to feel valued and you're not going to feel listened to, and you need to feel that. It's important to prioritise the children, but you have to take breaks, and I've said that in so many videos. And however you get that break, however long or short it is, what it is, the simplest of things, it might be that break for you is actually wandering around a superstore for an hour without the children. It doesn't really matter, as long as you get that headspace. Because if you can get that headspace, and you'll find the secondary trauma of kind of reenacting what the children are going through won't get to you as much, because you can just see real life again. Real life, walking around with a trolley, looking at packets of biscuits, rather than thinking about, oh, was that behaviour that so-and-so just did? Was that because they were abusing when they were younger? Was that part of their childhood trauma, or is that just them, trying it on with me? You stop analysing things for a little while, as we analyse so much. Where can you get help from? Well, if you feel that you have got a social worker there that you feel really close to, and you feel that you can trust them to take it as it is rather than to be concerned about you really not coping, then I think you could talk to them. I feel that if you are starting to get some of the, should we say, physical symptoms of mental illness, so that could be that you're shaking a lot, it could be that you can't think straight, it could be that you can't sleep. I'll talk about my sleep in a minute. It could be that you can't sleep. It could be that, you're getting very forgetful. Did I say being very forgetful? Oh gosh, I think I just said that. I'm getting very forgetful. Could be a number of things, that like stress-induced physical things. It might be that you're wanting to sleep all the time. It could be that you're arguing with your partner all the time. Exhaustion, that's a big one. If you really feel like that, then I'm just going to say to you, do not hold back from going to the GP. Do not hold back. Whatever you do, don't hold back for too long, because it can set in without you really realising. And at the end of the day, if you end up having a real breakdown or, you know, severely depressed, you're not going to be able to be there for the child anyway. So there's no point in trying to cover up stuff, I don't think. No point at all. The other things that you can do is just try and find a therapist, again, but that might cost you money. So find therapeutic practices to help yourself. If you've not gone too far down the route of really needing medical help, then I strongly suggest pick up some hobbies that perhaps you've had in the past as a child, or you've done before that you haven't done for a while. And if it's something with your hands, then that is always good, always good. I'm into my art, I'm into planning and journaling is very good anyway. Because if you journal, you can journal out your thoughts on paper, and providing you don't show anyone if you don't want to, then those thoughts are precious and they're yours. Physical exercise, of course, if you can get out for a walk every day or try and do something. I mean, sometimes saying that you're going to go for a massive swim or a 5-mile hike, it's not going to happen because you're too busy with the children. And let's be honest, this is the thing, you can't just do what you want when you want, because adopted and foster children take a lot of your time. To stop yourself getting too down is just right now, give yourself a pat on the back. Not because you're the hero of the hour, not because these children deserve you and, you know, and aren't they happy, you know, isn't it wonderful they've got you, but because parenting children with childhood trauma is super difficult. And if you've not picked up some of the books that help you with strategies, so Sarah Naish has 2 books, and I won't grab them because they're not on the shelf. She's got 2 books. One's parenting survival tips, and another, there's 2. There's the first one and the second one. Look up Sarah Naish and get yourself some books that just give you a realistic, down-to-earth, quite funny take on how to deal with some situations. Our situation at the moment is that our boys are both going through bullying at school. And you'll be saying to me, well, why don't you take them out? Because it's not that easy. It's not that easy just to take them out because there's other things at play with them. One of them we're hoping to get into a specialist school, and the other one, I think possibly the bullying will subside and we just kind of go full circle. But it's headachy because I'm trying to open a online shop on Tuesday, which is why I'm not sleeping very well, because I'm worrying about it. Why? When I've run nurseries before, I don't know, but I'm older now, so it's difficult, because then when they come home from school and one of them's coming home early because of the bullying, I have to debrief with them and they tell me everything that's happened during the day, and I have to unpick, not being rude, but how much is actually authentic, which bits are they kind of like, you know, fabricating a little bit, and I have to go into lots of detail. It's exhausting, and it's exhausting telling the teachers what's happening and making sure that everybody's up to date and everybody knows who's in school when and when they're not. So sometimes life can just really throw curveballs at you, and you've got to be ready for it, and you've got to understand and accept that even if you're the most strongest person in the world and you're the best parent in the world and you've done an amazing time up till now, that depression or having your mental health affected can happen to any of us at any time, and there's no shame in it. There's no it's no respecter of persons. You might be fine one month and the next month you just have a real deep dive, and you just need to be aware of it. And where you can, get your sleep. Do not take on too much like me. But I'm opening a shop to sell my art products because I've used art as a therapeutic means to help me, not only with the boys but also an illness I have, and it's really helped me. So try to find those things that help you. I hope you found that interesting and that you'll subscribe. Sorry that I do look like a train wreck, but I'm sure you'll forgive me, and I'll see you on my next videos on Fly Little Birds. Thank you.